You're 3 years old, sitting on a horse that's bigger than your entire future, and your father just slapped the animal's rear end, sending you galloping across the Mongolian steppe at speeds that would terrify a grown man. "Don't fall off, or the wolves will eat you before I do," he shouts cheerfully from behind, because Mongol parenting is basically extreme sports mixed with casual death threats. Your tiny hands grip the horse's mane like your life depends on it, because it absolutely does, while the endless grassland blurs past, and you're genuinely unsure if this is training or attempted murder disguised as family bonding time. Welcome to 13th century Mongolia, where childhood is a suggestion and survival is the curriculum. If stories like this make you wonder how any of these people survived to adulthood, subscribe to Lasting Legacy for more journeys through history's most brutal coming-of-age experiences. Your father, Batu, is a mid-ranking Mongol warrior who's killed more men than you've seen in your entire short life, and his idea of a lullaby is describing in vivid detail how he once shot an enemy commander through the eye from 200 paces while riding at full gallop. Your mother, Kalan, is equally terrifying in her own way. She can break down a tent, pack it on a cart, herd livestock, and still have time to beat you with a stick for crying about your scraped knees. "Mongols don't cry," she says constantly. "Mongols conquer." You're 3. You'd settle for maybe conquering your bladder control first, but nobody's asking your opinion. Your home isn't a home. It's a portable felt tent called a gur that gets packed up and moved every few weeks because the Mongol philosophy is if you stay in one place too long, you're either lazy or dead. The tent smells like horse, fermented mare's milk, mutton fat, and the collective sweat of a nomadic people who consider bathing a suspicious foreign concept. You sleep on furs that are probably cleaner than they smell, which isn't saying much. Your bed is literally the ground with extra steps. Breakfast is arag, fermented mare's milk that tastes like someone tried to make alcohol out of dairy and regretted it, but committed anyway. Your father hands you a bowl when you're 4.
Drink.
Builds strong Mongol stomach. You take a sip and immediately want to die. He laughs so hard he nearly falls over. Your face. That's the face of weakness, leaving your body. You're pretty sure it's actually your will to live leaving your body, but again, nobody's asking. The other children in your clan are basically a roaming pack of feral warriors in training. There's Timur, who's 5 and already broken his arm twice doing stupid stunts on horseback. There's Oyuna, a girl your age who can shoot a bow better than most grown men and isn't shy about proving it by shooting arrows uncomfortably close to your head during games. And there's Monk, the clan leader's son, who's 7 and acts like he's already conquered half of Asia, which is extra annoying because his father actually has. Your actual education begins at age 4, when your father hands you a small bow that's still too big for you. "Today you learn to shoot," he announces. By sunset, you hit target or no dinner. You're 4. Your arms are basically noodles. The bow is basically a medieval torture device. The target is 100 paces away, which might as well be in a different province. You spend the entire day shooting arrows into everything except the target, the ground, the sky, a passing cart, almost your mother, definitely someone's goat. By sunset, you're starving and crying, and you've learned an important lesson. Mongol motivation is just hunger with extra steps. But here's the thing about Mongol childhood, it's brutally effective. By age 5, you can ride a horse without falling off more than twice a day, which is considered excellent progress. By 6, you can shoot a bow while riding, hitting the target roughly 30% of the time, which means you miss 70% of the time, but that's still better than most civilized armies' accuracy rate. By 7, you can survive in the wilderness for days with nothing but a knife and the knowledge that complaining is more dangerous than the actual wilderness. The training is relentless and weird. Your father makes you practice shooting while hanging upside down from your horse. Yes, upside down, because enemies attack from all angles, and gravity is just another enemy. You're pretty sure gravity isn't actually an enemy, but after falling on your head 17 times, you're willing to reconsider. The clan's master archer, a scarred veteran named Sabidi, who's missing 3 fingers and an eye, somehow still shoots better than everyone else. "You see with your heart, not your eyes," he says mysteriously. You think that's metaphorical until you realize he's literally teaching you to shoot without looking, because Mongols are extra like that. Winter in Mongolia is like living inside an angry god's freezer. The temperature drops so low that your breath freezes midair and falls to the ground like tiny ice crystals. Your father's solution to winter training? Wear less clothes. Cold makes you fast. You're 8 years old, training in the snow wearing basically a thin deal robe, and you're moving fast not because the training is good, but because staying still means literally freezing to death. See? Fast, your father says proudly while you're actually just running in circles screaming internally. The Mongol diet is a fascinating journey into questionable nutrition. Mutton for breakfast. Dried mutton for lunch. More mutton for dinner. Occasionally some wild game if someone actually managed to hunt something, but usually mutton. So much mutton that you're pretty sure you're slowly transforming into a sheep. The rare times you get vegetables, they're treated like exotic delicacies. Onions. We feast like Chinese emperors tonight, your mother announces, and she's only slightly joking. Your first real raid comes at age 12, which in Mongol years is basically middle-aged. Your father wakes you before dawn. Today you become man. We raid the Merkits. You're excited for approximately 30 seconds until you realize raid means ride 2 days straight, attack a fortified camp, possibly die, definitely don't sleep. The Merkits are a rival tribe who've been feuding with your clan over something that happened 3 generations ago that nobody fully remembers, but everyone's still mad about. The ride to the Merkit camp is your first taste of Mongol military efficiency. You don't stop for meals, you eat dried meat while riding. You don't stop to sleep, you sleep on the horse, sort of more like a controlled unconsciousness that occasionally results in falling off. You don't stop for bathroom breaks. You figure it out while riding, and it's exactly as dignified as it sounds. Mongol army stops for nothing, your father shouts. Not even basic human needs. You're starting to understand why the Mongols conquered so much territory. Everyone else probably surrendered just to get a proper toilet break. The attack happens at dawn, because apparently that's when everyone's most vulnerable and also most grumpy. The Mongols charge in screaming, shooting arrows from horseback while riding in coordinated formations that look like chaos, but are actually carefully planned chaos. You're assigned to the rear with other first-timers, which sounds safe until you realize rear just means slightly less likely to die immediately. An enemy warrior charges at you, and your training takes over. You shoot, miss again, miss again, panic, shoot a third time, and somehow hit him in the shoulder. He falls. You've just injured your first human being before lunch. Your father rides past and shouts, "Good. Next time aim for face." More dramatic. The Merkits break and run, which is Mongol battle strategy working perfectly. They wanted them to run so they could chase them down and shoot them in the back. Running enemies are the best enemies, Sabidi explains later. Already doing half the dying for you. The Mongol approach to warfare is basically to be so terrifyingly effective that surrender looks like the best option, and if surrender doesn't happen, make the alternative so horrible that future enemies hear about it and surrender preemptively. Your teenage years are a blur of campaigns, raids, and increasingly elaborate Mongol military tactics. You're 15 when you participate in your first major siege, attacking a Chinese fortress that looks absolutely impregnable. How do we conquer this? You ask nervously, looking at the massive walls. Your commander grins. We starve them, or we trick them, or we build siege weapons, or we redirect a river. Mongols have options. They end up doing all 4 simultaneously because Mongols don't believe in choosing when you can just do everything. The siege lasts 3 months, which is 3 months of living in a camp outside the walls, practicing archery, planning attacks, and slowly driving the defenders insane with psychological warfare. The Mongols shoot messages attached to arrows saying things like, "We can wait forever. Can you?" And, "Your food runs out Tuesday." "We know. We counted." One defender yells back, "How did you count our food?" The Mongols don't answer because the psychological damage of not knowing is worse. When the fortress finally falls, you learn another important Mongol principle. Overwhelming victory must be visible. The Mongols don't just conquer, they make sure everyone knows they conquered so thoroughly that resistance becomes unthinkable. It's brutal, it's efficient, and it's terrifyingly effective at preventing future rebellions. You're starting to understand that Mongol warfare is 50% actual fighting and 50% making sure everyone's too scared to fight you in the first place. At 17, you're a full warrior in Genghis Khan's expanding empire, and you've seen more of Asia than most people see in 10 lifetimes. You've ridden from the steppes to the Chinese plains, from the frozen north to the deserts of the south. Your horse, you're on your fourth horse now after the others died or were traded, is basically your home. You've spent more time on horseback than on foot. Your legs are permanently bowed from riding. You can sleep, eat, fight, and apparently live your entire life without ever actually touching the ground for more than a few minutes. The Mongol military system is insanely organized for a nomadic people. Every unit of 10 soldiers has a leader. Every unit of 10 leaders has a commander. Every unit of 10 commanders reports up, creating a pyramid of command that's more organized than most settled civilizations' bureaucracies. You get promoted to leader of 10 at 18, which means you're now responsible for 9 other warriors who are all slightly worse at not dying than you are. Don't let them die stupidly, your father advises. Smart death is acceptable. Stupid death is embarrassing. Your greatest challenge comes during the Khwarezmian campaign when you're 22. The Mongols are invading a massive empire to the west because their Shah killed some Mongol ambassadors, which was, diplomatically speaking, the worst decision in human history. The Khwarezmians have cities, armies, and fortifications. The Mongols have horses, arrows, and spite. Guess who wins? You're part of the force besieging the city of Nishapur, which foolishly killed a Mongol general and is about to learn why that was a terrible idea. The siege is brutal, the fighting is intense, and when the city falls, the Mongols execute their revenge so thoroughly that historians will still be talking about it centuries later. You participate not with pride but with the grim understanding that this is what Mongol justice looks like: absolute, terrifying, and designed to ensure nobody ever kills another Mongol ambassador ever again. The campaign continues for years. You're 25 and you've fought in a dozen major battles across territories so vast you've lost track of where you even are anymore. Persia? Maybe. Central Asia? Probably. Somewhere terrifying? Definitely. Your body is a collection of scars, arrow wounds that healed crooked, sword cuts that left permanent marks, and that one time you fell off your horse at full gallop and dislocated your shoulder, but had to keep fighting because stopping meant dying. At 30, you're a veteran commander of 100 warriors, and younger Mongols look at you the way you once looked at Sabidii, as someone who somehow survived everything the world threw at them. You've fought under Genghis Khan himself, watched him plan campaigns that seemed impossible, and then execute them perfectly. You've seen the Mongol Empire expand from the steppes to cover more territory than any empire in history. But here's what nobody tells you about being a Mongol warrior: it never stops. There's no retirement plan, no peaceful old age of sitting by a fire telling stories. You fight until you can't, and then you fight some more, and then eventually you die in battle, or you die of injuries, or you die of old age at 40, which in Mongol warrior years is ancient. Your final campaign comes at 35. You're attacking a fortified position in Russia, because apparently the Mongols looked at the map and decided, not enough conquest, and went north into the frozen nightmare lands. The battle is fierce, the Russians fight desperately, and you take an arrow through the ribs that punctures something important. You fall from your horse for the last time. Timur, who's been your friend since childhood, and is somehow still alive despite even worse decision-making than yours, drags you behind the lines. The Mongol medic, basically a guy who's seen a lot of injuries and has strong opinions about which ones are fatal, examines you and shakes his head. You'll live, but no more riding. For a Mongol warrior, that's basically a death sentence that just takes longer. You survive the injury, but you're done. At 35, your warrior career ends not in glorious death, but in forced retirement. You limp back to Mongolia on a cart, which is humiliating for someone who spent their entire life on horseback. Your father, now ancient and barely mobile, laughs when he sees you. Finally too broken to fight? Took you long enough. You spend your final years training young warriors, teaching them the same brutal lessons you learned. Shoot from horseback. Never stop moving. Cold makes you fast. Crying is for conquered people. The young ones think you're crazy until they survive their first battle and realize your crazy advice kept them alive. You die at 43, which is a long life for a Mongol warrior. Your body is buried in an unmarked grave according to Mongol tradition, your location kept secret so enemies can't desecrate it. No monument, no elaborate tomb, just the steppe grass and the wind. But your sons are warriors, your grandsons are warriors, and the Mongol Empire you helped build stretches from Korea to Hungary. Not bad for a kid who started by barely staying on a horse. The Mongols eventually stopped conquering because they ran out of world to conquer, which is the most Mongol reason to stop doing something. Your legacy isn't in monuments or written records. Mongols didn't write much down, too busy writing, but in the genetic markers spread across 2 continents and the historical fact that a nomadic people from the steppes built the largest contiguous empire in human history by being better at warfare than everyone else combined. Not bad for people whose entire childhood was basically survive or don't, we're moving the 10 either way. If this journey through the Mongol Empire's brutal warrior culture made you appreciate modern parenting and actual houses that don't move, subscribe to Lasting Legacy for more stories of civilizations that conquered the world through sheer terrifying competence.